Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Title. Today it's going to be amazing. We have a gentleman who immigrated to Australia. He's a doctor, he's an entrepreneur, he is a friend, amazing. We want to bring some real wisdom for you watching today. Now, Dev, I noticed you have a card in there, brother, for your memory, a skeleton, right? What have you got on your list?
Oh, look, thanks very much for inviting me, Julio. You know, you radiate the sun, you radiate energy. And as an Englishman coming to this country, you know, we're used to the cloudiness and the rain and the dreary weather. So it's just so good to be with you today. Known you for 8 years. You've taught me a lot about financial intelligence. And look, this list is not a shopping list. It's a list of the items that I think are important for business people, entrepreneurs, government individuals, doctors who want to embrace financial intelligence. So, yeah, look, I'm
fascinated by your list, brother.
And it was just really in the airport. I just put a list of things down that I think are important for your listeners and your viewers. Okay,
yes.
So the first set of list is really the mindset list that I talked about. What do people want to do in their lives? Do they want to be rich? Do they want to be wealthy? Do they want to be risk takers? Do they want security? Do they want to be employed? Do they want to be self-employed? You know, those are the items that I think many people have to decide what they want to do in their lives. Then it's all about how do you undergo wealth creation? What are the facets of doing that? What are the journeys of doing that? Is it owning a business? Is it owning properties? Is it stocks and shares? Is it crypto? You know, those are the things that one has to think about with regard to wealth creation. Obviously, debt minimization is critical as a platform to go to create wealth. And you have to minimize your credit card, minimize your expenses, minimize your loans. And there's naturally lots of other expenses that you really have to think about, understand. How much is your electricity bill? How much is your utilities bill? How much is your phone bill? Do you really need 100 gigabytes per day? Yeah? So that's called debt minimization. And then what are your long-term aims in life? Do you want to retire healthy and wealthy? Do you want to have capital growth? Do you want cash flow? These, I think, are the important questions that one has to really think about when they in their 40s or 50s. Think about retirement should be as early as possible. So is it retirement, capital growth, cash flow? And then what about if you have children? What about the inheritance? What about estate plannings? And again, these are all part of that longevity thinking that one has to do. And then obviously income maximization. And I think certainly you look at the textbooks, the opportunities are, do you earn income? Do you create profit by selling businesses? Do you have income from interest? Do you have income from dividend, rental, capital gains, royalties? So those are the 7 important income generation that one has to think about on what would suit the individual. Not everybody can do all 7. I'll say them again because it's important. Earning income, profit, interest, dividend, rental, capital gains, and royalties. And so what I hope today we're going to look at and say, how can we really think and really maximize, and for your viewers and listeners to say, okay, I think I can change my mindset from right at the beginning. Is it you want to be wealthy? Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be secure? Are you a risk taker? Do you be employed and self-employed? But those are the basic skeleton and the basic bones for an individual who are visiting you to be informed and to be energized. That's the list that I carry with me all the time.
This is a great list, a great list. Thank you so much. Look, here at the podcast, we want to go into who are you, beyond the title. So we know you're a doctor. We know you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, growing, you know, what you see possible, right? And start to make moves, deliberate moves, empowering other doctors to become better versions of themselves. And this conversation, I love this skeleton. But let me go back in time a little. Just who is the man, Dev? have, right? Beyond the title, what makes you tick? And so I have a list, brother. I have a few questions I want to ask you, right? And I just want to say to you, okay, so back to some time, and we can go back in time even further, but when did you arrive in Australia?
Okay. Well, I first came in 2003 with my wife, Katie, before children arrived. We spent a year here, beautiful part of the world. I went back to the UK because I was taking up a consultant or a staff specialist job for doctors who are listening. I'm a respiratory and sleep specialist or physician, and I spent 9 to 10 years there as a specialist in a town called Birmingham. And then in 2013, I got a call from one of the hospitals in Sydney to say, look, we'd really like you to come back, and would you consider moving over? I think the message from that story is it's always important to build healthy relationships as you go on in life. So in 2003, when I came along, I never knew that in 10 years' time, I'm going to be asked to come back to this beautiful country called Australia. But I created relationships. There were health relationships. I kept in touch with these guys that I worked with. And then one day, I had the phone call and said, we want you back. And so that's when the journey continued. Coming back to Australia 2013, and I've never looked back. Australia is a beautiful country. It has beautiful opportunities for an entrepreneur to be, for a doctor to be, and I'm very, very happy to be back in Australia. From an early age, it was really very much expected that I will do medicine, and I never really, at those days, really experienced and really touched on the possibility of business, entrepreneur, commerce, finance, until later on in life, which we'll touch on. But that was the early story of my life, that really I was expected to become a doctor, and I did what I was told to do, and I did. I became a doctor, qualified in 1992. I started doing the junior doctor jobs around Yorkshire, moved to Birmingham, where I met my wife-to-be, Katie, and then I suppose the rest of my medical career is history.
When did you realize that you had the entrepreneurial spirit? Because you see, here comes your father and say, hey, be a doctor, you're going to get well paid, make sure you pay your house off, look after your family, and then put money aside for you to have a great retirement. But something inside of you spiked and you thought, nah, I'm going to own clinics. I'm going to build a business. I'm going to have people working for me. When did you start feeling the pull away from just being a doctor to start becoming an entrepreneur, start becoming a driver, a force, right, in the universe? When did you notice that?
Oh, look, I think the planets aligned. I'd been, by 2014, that's 20 plus years working in the public sector. I was probably a little bit burnt out.
Okay.
And I've never afraid of telling that to people who come to me in my sleep insomnia clinic with mental health issues and insomnia, burnout, anxiety, and I see a lot of that during COVID. And I'll say, yeah, my friend, I've been burnt out. And when you're burnt out, the immense drain feeling that you have with regard to lack of energy of doing and aspiring and inspiring other new things, it's really quite debilitating. So I suppose 2014 was the time of that pivotal moment in me. When there was a little bit of burnout, I was thinking, is this what I want to do for the next 20 years? And I met you. And it was at a conference. I don't even remember what the conference was. I think it was a mental health or primary care conference. And I was walking along. It was like the coffee break. And I remember I heard a voice with a Portuguese accent. And he was saying with his loudspeaker, or even a microphone, probably a loudspeaker actually, saying, I know exactly how much you earn. And I think one guy, I can't remember the exact words and the exact context of this, but one guy said, how do you know that? And you said, well, how much do you earn in a month? And he said, 20K? Okay. How much do you spend in a month? He said, 20K. And then you said, you earn $250,000 a year. And he said, yeah, I do. How did you know that? And the penny dropped that this person that you were talking to has no savings.
Yeah. Spends every dollar.
He spends every dollar and there's zero left over by the end of the year.
Again, software, you match your expenses to your income.
Exactly. And your income goes up.
Your bills
and your
go
expenses go up.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit in doctors, they want to look to be seen as a doctor, whether it's a class thing or have a nice car. There's always a joke that all Indian doctors drive Mercedes-Benz.
Right.
The joke's been there for years and years and years, decades.
Yes.
And it's true. They all used to drive Mercedes-Benz. You ask me, what car do I drive?
Yes.
I drive a Toyota Yaris 1.4 manual. I don't drive a nice car.
Yes.
It's paid for. I have no car loan. But meeting you struck me that, is this the life that I'm going to lead until the day I retire? And we talked and we chatted, we talked about wealth creation, we talked about the change of the mindset, the financial intelligence that you talk about.
How's it for you to have millions of dollars under your command now? How's it feel? Like when you get up in the morning and you look at your infrastructure, you look at your assets, and you know there's millions of dollars, right, that you do command. So you have your property assets, you have your clinics, you have this. Yes, there's debt, there's accounting, there's all sorts of things. But, going back to the guy who bought, £250,000, and bought a retirement village, right? And now you sit here expanding your clinics, expanding your acumen. Talk to me a little bit about this conversation. Like, I don't need to have an expensive car to prove myself, right? But yet underneath as I get up, I got lots of infrastructure that actually obey my command. You have people that work for you. They love working with you. They see the vision. They're part of something greater than themselves, right? How is it for you to just still be young man, commanding all this infrastructure, inspiring people to live? How, from being a doctor, doing your visitations, right, to now being a full-blown entrepreneur and a doctor. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I suppose it's all down to mindset, Julio. And again, going back to the list that I was talking about, what do you want to achieve in life? Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be wealthy? Now, they're both very different things. Yes, I've got assets, but I'm very cash poor. I don't have a dime in my wallet. I wear clothes that are 20 years old.
Yes.
I drive a small car that my children are embarrassed in when I drop them off at school.
Right.
They want to be driven in a Bentley.
Yes.
So it's all to do with the mindset and how you achieve that wealth creation. Ultimately, I suppose time will tell. Do we change that to being cash rich, or do we keep that asset rich and the children then have that, and that's part of estate planning? And for me in life, the children mean everything to me. Mm-hmm. Aaron and Sophie, they mean everything to me. And we can talk about what I'm doing with investment of children as well. I think a lot of your listeners will be interested to hear that. But it's all about changing the mindset. I don't mind wearing old clothes. I don't mind driving a crap car, according to my daughter. I don't mind going to Coles and buying, Coles or Woolworths branded milk and not the expensive milk.
Yes.
I don't mind looking at where I can save the pennies.
Yes.
And I think it's all down to mindset. Do you want security? Are you a risk taker? Do you want to be employed, or do you want to be self-employed? And so, for me, the question that you're asking is, how does it feel to be having assets? It feels good.
I have a construction that goes in my mind right now as we are talking, and the people watching. There's two things, right? There's a few things starting to emerge here. First question that I asked is, when did you realize that you had an entrepreneurial spirit, right? So, and you said 2013, and we met and started going.
When I met you.
Yeah. And then now we know, as I know you, so people are listening and they go, All right, so who is Dev? Well, Dev is a guy who is not flashy. He's not a guy who cares about wearing symbols, right? So as I sit with you, and I'm honored by the process of which you go, I command incredible infrastructure, and I'm growing, I'm going places, and I know, and people listen to you came out of nowhere, and now your business is growing, it's going to go international, amazing things are happening, right? And you sit here comfortably saying, my daughter wants me to drive a flash car. I don't need to. And yet when I look at my assets, they are growing. You could buy 3 flash cars if you wanted to, but there is no need. So my question is, it integrates like this. When did you know that you have an entrepreneurial spirit? Talk to me about the journey of moving that, buying your first clinic, employing people, right? But I also want to know a little bit about how you feel as your empire grows, having these assets underneath you, more command.
No, for sure. So around 2016, 17, I decided to leave the public sector.
Yes, there you go.
I decided that 20 plus years in the public sector, I've done my bit, bit burnt out, but I was energized by you, and I decided to run my own clinic in the Central Coast, New South Wales, with a business partner who's not a doctor. And I think that's one of the best advice that I can give to any doctor, that if you're going to have a business partner, you want to have a business partner where your skill sets are different.
Right.
Because too many times I've seen partner doctors, and there's an infighting and they fall out, and one has one vision, another has another vision. But my business partner, an absolute dear friend of mine called Kareen, absolutely fantastic, runs the show from a managing director point of view, business development with me. So that was the big step that I took around the 2017 mark where I created my own company. It was a big risk.
Of course.
For suddenly, I had no superannuation. Suddenly, I had no sickness benefits. Suddenly, I had no paternity benefits, although I didn't need to at that stage. But these are the sort of things that one has to think about. If they go in it alone in business, do you come out of the public sector? Do you go 50-50? If you're going to run a business, you got to give 110%. You can't sort of be there for half a week and not half the week. I have 14 staff, absolutely superb staff, young, fresh, hungry staff that, just well-trained, they want to learn, they want to go places. And I know that one day they'll have the building blocks to maybe run their own business as a business manager, as a clinic manager, and so on. So for me, that was a big pivotal moment to own a company that has equity. Because when you are a doctor in the public health service, you have no equity.
So this is a major shift. So you see somebody who is preoccupied with income, preoccupied with superannuation, and then you think, hold on a second, there is a bigger game for me to play here. Is to have a company that I will, through my effort, build its equity, build its value. How? By just being me. Showing up hungry, showing up dedicated. And I reckon that even though you may be feeling a bit burnt out, that gave you stamina, didn't it? That gave you like a new alignment for getting up and going at life.
Places.
Yes.
Yeah, and you look at the amazing people around who are business people and entrepreneurs. Richard Branson, for example, every 7 to 8 years, he changes direction into something else. And that's what keeps people going. And so I've been doing my clinic now for nearly 5 years, and I've created another company which is involved in advising and dispensing medicinal cannabis, because that's another growing market. So that's another company that I co-own with Kareen and a pharmacist called Luca. And so when people say, well, how do you actually earn money? I earn money because I do clinic consultation, and therefore there's income generated that way. So that is a monthly income. But the important thing is that there's equity in the business, and because it's a business, then there's obviously dividends after corporate tax. And if anybody wants to buy us out in 5-10 years' time, then at least that's where you get your money back. That's where the growth potential is. That's where the wealth creation is in a business. So having a business, it's not for the faint-hearted. I'd say 90% of my colleagues are quite happy to be pay-as-you-go. Running their own business is not what their thing is. But it's one particular facet of wealth creation and making sure you retire with a bit of money in your pocket.
Yeah. Brother, look, let me just see if I'm tracking with you, coming along. So got invited to Australia because you were a doctor. You went to the public service, did your rounds. While in the public service, you start noticing mental health issues, so you said to yourself, I'm going to set up a clinic, help people to sleep better. By sleep pattern, I'll change the patterns, break the patterns, help them to actually go back into health. And you stay there, build a clinic, grew a clinic. I remember when we first met and you were telling me about your targets, your turnover in terms of income, patients, scalability, right? Already conversations of an entrepreneur, right? And then you grew that clinic. And now from within that clinic, you saw the changes in law, you saw the changes in markets, you start looking at cannabis, taking away all this stigma and looking at its potential for benefit for humanity. And you said, you know what? Take the high, make it oil, and help people to sleep deeper. And then you are looking right now, you are looking at manufacturing overseas. You have a manufacturing process in Australia. You have manufacturing processes exploring overseas. You're looking at international markets, right? But all of those things are possible because once upon a time you're doing your rounds.
Correct.
Right? And then it's like, cool, now I see I'm going to own my clinic. And the moment you took on your clinic, so it's a higher mountain. And from then you start looking at greater and bigger markets. And what I love about this conversation, it's almost like you have nowhere to go but to grow, right, the value of that company of yours. There is nowhere to go now. Your partners are aligned with the vision. What we want to do is create distribution processes, right, and then grow the value of that business. And then you have the exit of selling it, the exit of bringing in other partners, and then you take in as a founder position and just take the dividends, but just giving it life. And what for me, and I want to give it back to you with a question, is this. When you say, because I want to talk to you about family, because now you have two families. You have your family, people that look like you, right? Your wife and children. But now you have the family inside of your business, the people inside your business. You said hungry, mentorship. So my conversation with you right now is how do you deal with time? How do you deal with family? How do you look after your family? How do you look after yourself, your family, and then your business family? Can you take me there, please?
Yeah, look, first of all, setting up a business, running a business, a successful business, not all businesses survive in the first year. I think they say only 50-60% survive in the first year. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of ingenuity. A bit of luck, I suppose, being at the right place at the right time is important. Having a business partner that shares the same vision, bringing in the staff that also are prepared to share that vision as well. So there's no doubt there's an element of understanding entrepreneurship, business development. And look, I don't know whether that's an instinct, whether you learn that. I don't know. I've never been able to answer that question because whether I was suppressed as an entrepreneur as a young child, because that's what my father told me, and then it all released. I must say I did a lot of studying and a lot of learning, a lot of book reading. All the kids now are, watching YouTube videos. My son watches TikTok to learn about business. He sent me a TikTok video on what the inheritance rate is in Japan.
Wow.
And
18 years old.
18 years old. Detailed inheritance laws on TikTok. Now, I used to go to the bookshop and buy business books, and I learned, and I read, and I learned, and I read, and I learned, and I read. Now, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not a tax officer, whatever, but I know the basics of running a business, running marketing, running social media, HR, almost like I've done an MDA,
Yes.
MBA, sorry, by just self-learning. I think that's critical for someone who wants to run a business.
Yes.
But it's interesting how young fellas, and we can talk about the children and how young people want to be entrepreneurs as well later on. But for me, that was the critical bare bones of being able to run the business. But it can't be done because of all the energy and the resources and the time that's necessary to run a business. It can't be done without the support and the stability of the rest of your family.
Yes.
And for me, not every day is a rosy day. Shit happens.
Yes.
Clients are unhappy. The products haven't arrived. They're late. I'm late, running behind, etc., etc. But I know that when I come home, there's no shit fight.
Great.
Because I have a stable family. I'm very grateful for my wife, Katie. Interestingly, Katie is a complete opposite to me.
Right.
She's not an entrepreneur. She's a pediatrician. She's a kids doctor at Westmead Children. She's a rehabilitation doctor. She looks after injured children. She looks after brain injury children. She looks after cerebral palsy. That's great for society. We need those people.
Yes.
They are as important as people who employ people.
Yes.
And she's not going to say to me, well, what's your profit and loss, P&L this month? She's not going to say to me, what's the bottom line? She's not going to say to me, how much are you paying in corporate tax? How much are you paying payroll tax? She's not going to ask me that. She says, have you had a good day? And then if I start talking about payroll tax, P&Ls, she switches off. And she puts the kettle on. And it's so loud, she won't be able to hear me. And I think that's important, that when I come home, there's no shit fight, the family is stable. Teenagers have their moments, but I know I come home to a very happy, loving, stable relationship. And I think that's critical to allow a business owner, whether it's a man or a woman, to get on and do the things. Because they share the vision secretly.
Yes.
Secretly, they share the vision and they want the best for you. And they know it's teamwork. Teamwork is such a critical part of running your life, whether it's business, whether it's personal, husband and wife, till death do us part, is critical in getting that success story and getting it over the line.
Yeah. Brother, that is absolutely beautiful. What's your biggest challenge? We start talking about, some tough days and things are late, you're late, like things that happen every day. But right now, what would be your biggest challenges in going from being a doctor to a business owner? And what are the bigger challenges you face right now, like the things that you want to tackle?
Yeah, look, I think this is probably this answer would apply for many business owners. It's obviously sustainability. It's obviously we're not getting younger, and how long can we go on running around 100 kilometer or 100 mile an hour? Who's going to share the workload with you? And I'm always a big believer that with time, passive income is the key aspiration, that you've got the team doing the work for you. You can be that person who is guiding, inspiring, looking beyond that horizon, like I mentioned. Mm-hmm. But when in the first 5+ years of doing a business, you are absolutely critical, because you've got the knowledge, you've got the medical knowledge, you've got the medical know-how. You know where, certainly in medicine, where developments are happening, new projects are happening. So for me, I think the biggest challenge for any medical business owner is sustainability, it's scalability, and looking after your own health. And we sort of call it work-life balance. I call it work-life integration. Because the balance means one has to give. And work and life has to be equal with regard to its importance in life. I can't do less work for life balance. I can't do more life balance or less work, or more work for less life. I think it has to be integrated in a sensible way. And so for the challenges for me is trying to maintain that work-life integration, keeping going with the business. But let's not forget, I employ 14 people. They want food on the table, man.
Yes.
I can't get ill. I can't go sick. Going away for a week when the business runs on me and relies on me is tough. COVID was tough. Thankfully, by the blessing of the higher powers of we were in health rather than hospitality.
Right. Absolutely.
Rather than hospitality. And so people got sick.
It's funny to me, like when you say, man, I can't get ill. I got 14 people depend upon me. Some people will hear that and think, oh, but I hear that like, that is a great motivator. So your motivation to look after Dev, to be sharp, to be fit, to be on a game, you know, I hear that as an incredible inquiry of life itself to say, Dev, baby, you're on a mission, you're on a vision, you better look after Dev. Because why? Because and these people are dependent on the vision and the success of the vision, right? And reframing that continuously. I am sure that if you needed to have time down, that your team would then have an opportunity to carry for you. But that's not even your frame. Your frame is, I'll lead. I will sustain. I will grow. Sustainability. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think another extra word you should put into that is agility. Agility. And agility we prove during COVID. Mm-hmm. So suddenly we went into lockdown. So suddenly, overnight, patients can't come to your clinic for the consultations. Mm-hmm. Within 24 hours, we mobilized a team, we got all the laptops for them, and we trained them up. We made sure they all had internet. We made sure they had the right chairs for ergonomics, and they worked from home for 6 months.
Right.
And we were able to do that within 24, 48 hours. We shut the clinic for 2 days, and my team, my clinic manager, and I've got to have a special recommendation, and for my clinic manager, Ali Marie, who was superb in getting the younger team ready and mobilized and being agile. Now, for me, though, when there's adversity, there's opportunity.
Yes.
And we realize that we're the agile clinic, we're maintaining the business, and so we're the shopping centre where my clinic is. Apart from Woolworths and apart from Coles, we were the only other business that was open every day, except Sundays, over COVID.
Wow.
Because we were agile enough to be working, continuing, bringing in income, paying the bills, paying the rent, because we were agile enough to be able to do that. So I think a message to business owners is, don't rest on your laurels. Be on your front foot. Yep. Be on your toes. When there's adversity, be agile. Use adversity as an opportunity. And you might have to change direction.
Yeah.
You know, if you're at an intersection of traffic lights, do you go forward, do you go left, do you go right? You don't go back. You go forward, left or right. You got to change direction. And so I'm always looking for opportunities, whether that's something is an innate, intrinsic ability that I have. Like I said, when I felt that the direction of the clinic needs to change and we moved to the business of medicinal cannabis, we went for it, and we're reaping the benefits from it, and we're very lucky that that opportunity came to us. But you have to take the opportunity.
You have to take the opportunity.
You got to take the opportunity. There's no point just saying, "Oh, I can't make it today. The cricket's on today. Yeah, I'm going to have a bottle of VB. And what's the cricket? I'll think about. I'll sort it out." You got to take the opportunity there and then.
Yes.
But that is all part of mindset.
Yes.
It's a mindset. Do you wait? Are you reactive or are you proactive?
Yeah. So, you know, I have another question here. We touched on it earlier. You know, what's your relationship with your business growth and your investments, right? So I'm very clear that as you start to generate business growth, more income, you start investing as well in things that have nothing to do with your business. Passive investments are for the listeners, can just take us through that journey. We in language here, we call it, the pigs off the farm. We talk about workhorses. We use these analogies, right, where people have assets that are growing in value, doing things. Just for other doctors, take us through, how did that come in your radar? How did that come in your vision? And how did you execute, right? Of course, that we, our other businesses being part of that too. So I don't want to be coming across as trying to sell my own fish here, but I want to talk about your genuine journey, right? Or having assets working for you. Because the average doctor watching this, right, spends 4 months a year working for the government. When I spoke in Parliament, I was very, very incisive. I was very insistent that doctors should not pay tax at all. Every single time that somebody goes and visit a doctor, and then the doctor put that person back into life in a better shape, that doctor is enhancing the economy. And people are not looking at it. And the way we are right now, I believe that we are penalizing the doctors, right? Charging them enormous amount of tax. There's not a lot of leeways in which they can minimize their tax. Investing, yes. Other ways, very difficult, right? So tell me a little bit about that journey of understanding more about investments, understanding more about tax minimization, so your peers can hear you.
Yeah, look, I think you made a great point there, that for 4 months of the year you work for the government. Let me just redefine that. Between January the 1st and the 30th of April, you actually work for the Australian Tax Office.
Yes.
That's who you're working for.
Yeah.
You're employed by the ATO.
Meaning that you pay over $100,000 in tax a year, every year, like clockwork. It's $1 million in the next decade. And you have so many tax incentives that you know nothing about, right?
You're making the state government rich. That's how they pay for the roads. That's how they pay for clean water. Fine. And also the people that go and get the Gucci, get the Prada, get the Louis Vuitton, you're making their shareholders rich.
Yeah.
Do you really need a Louis Vuitton bag?
Yeah.
Or a Prendy bag? Can you get away with a wicker bag from Bunnings? So it's you sort of with regard to wealth creation, you're making the money talk and do the work for you, and not for anybody else. And I think that's the key thing. And I think one of the things that I learned from you when we first met in 2014 is that we're a very lucky country in Australia.
Yeah, blessed indeed.
We are very lucky. Inheritance tax is hardly anything.
Yeah.
That TikTok video my son showed, 43% inheritance tax is something in Japan. Now, I think in the UK, up to assets of 300,000, it might be a little bit more now, is tax-free. But anything above that, inheritance tax. So if you've got a $10 million portfolio and you want to leave it to your children after you die, there's not much left over. So I think we live in a very lucky country where there are ability to offset tax legally. There's no bending of rules here, but you need a reasonably good accountant that understands tax laws, and I certainly have one. And he'll say, well, when you went from one clinic to another clinic, I used to do multiple clinics, that you do know that petrol you can tax offset from work to work. Really? Yeah. And it's all part of education. It's all part of financial intelligence. But one of the things that I learned from certainly reading, certainly learning, certainly understanding about financial intelligence is wealth creation. And I think we're very lucky in this country that investment properties is a very good tool to create that wealth creation. I think we're very lucky with that. And for me, investment properties is a real opportunity for many, because there's going to be a demand for investment properties, for rental accommodation. We're going to have a huge influx of skilled migrants. Where they're going to live?
Yeah.
Where they're going to live? I know the government is keen to expand the portfolio of the number of houses available. Yeah, sure. We've got issues of supply chain, we've got issues of tradies and whatever, but we'll get there. And I think the key thing for me with investment properties is that the cost, the interest, the depreciation of the properties can be all tax offset. So you minimize the amount of tax you have to pay. And rather than working for the ATO, my money works for me.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. So from a doctor, okay, who just arrived in Australia, worked the public systems, and then you are now a big time investor building an incredible, incredible portfolio. For anyone watching this, can you take me through the journey of not knowing anything, just wanting to buy your own home, to now have multiple assets? Okay, what would you say to yourself or to a younger doctor who's just starting out in life that wants to get ahead, build an asset base, build a chain reaction? What would you say? What would you teach them?
You know, that's a great question. And I've got to thank the team at Medigrow and their individuals who have guided me on this. I can't have done it myself. I'm a doctor, you know, I've went to medical school to heal and make people better. But learning about wealth creation and properties has been a real eye-opener. My journey is not necessarily the same as anybody else, but it's an example. Mm-hmm. It's an example where what one can achieve. For me, personally, having the family home was critical for my wife and the children, which I paid for myself, obviously, with a large mortgage, a scary mortgage. But I know that in Australia, we're very lucky that house prices will increase in equitable value. Mm-hmm. And I know that I can pay off that mortgage eventually. Sometimes I don't need to feel as if I'm obliged to pay it off quickly or slowly. I know that the equity of the value of the house will improve. And once I've got that equity and I've got that stable building foundation for the family, then I worked with Medigrow to get the investment properties. Uh-huh. And the team that particularly were important to me was the finance team, the guys that work with the banks. Obviously, I need a mortgage to pay for these properties, the property management team, where am I going to buy these properties, which state, the rules and regulations. And so I was lucky enough to be able to invest in 2 properties. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of that, which I realized soon after, was that because of the rules and regulations of this beautiful country, we can offset tax. For example, the interest you pay is tax deductible. The costs of the house with regard to utilities, with regard to landlord insurance, with regard to maintenance, with regard to property management are tax deductible because it's an investment. Mm-hmm. I can't do that with my own property.
Yes, your own home.
It's my own home. With investment properties you can. The depreciation, if it's a new property. So per annum you get a depreciation which you can use, your account can use as an offset, anything between $8,000 and $10,000 a year. So in effect, what you're doing a lot of tax saving, almost up to $70K a year. Mm-hmm. If you've got a good portfolio. Mm-hmm. Now, can you imagine what you can do with that money, $70K? You can then pay off your home.
So $70,000 is coming back to you, yes?
$70,000 is coming back to me.
Uh-huh. And what do you do with it?
And then that goes to pay for the house.
Your own home?
My own home.
Amazing.
And then once you bring down that loan, then you bring down the interest costs, etc. Now, then you will think, well, with 2 properties, the value and the equity of those houses go up, and then you can go back to the banks and say, well, I think I'm in a position for 2 more properties, and then it's something called a chain reaction. Now, I would say to my colleagues who are listening to this is, don't be scared. Don't be scared of debt. It's good debt. It's investment debt. Don't be worried. It will be paid off eventually if you decide to sell the house, because you're going to get equitable value go up, and generally it's about 7% per annum, which is what I found in my own properties. So I've had my properties for nearly 7 years. The value of the house have gone up by 50% nearly. Remarkable. Now, for those who are listening, it's a case of, do I dip my toe and say, well, am I in the position to do that? Get your advice, obviously with the Medigrow team who've advised me, who will look at your situation. Your situation may not be same as mine, but will focus on what your situation is and make the right choices and the right journey for you to ensure you're getting decent wealth creation for long-term investment.
Yeah, in a country where demand is higher than supply, it's kind of easy to just take your stake. And when you live in a nation that is going from 25 million people to 36 million people in a window of 30 years or so much wealth will be created in that time. And you nailed it before. There's a huge need for qualified people. Where are they going to live? And we already have a crisis of production of houses, right? So demand and supply will dictate that prices have to go up. You know, it doesn't matter what people think this week, medium to long term. If I have a greater demand and supply, there's no way for it to go but to become more and more and more expensive just through desire. Just through a need to have it.
Yeah, look, I think government policy knows that. The politicians know that. My son's just done his ATAR. Does that define your life? Mm-hmm. I don't think so. It's nice to have a decent ATAR, but that's not going to define where you're going to be in 20 years' time. It's the mindset. And certainly Aaron is interested in business, whether that's genetic or he's learned from me. I'll tell you a funny story, actually. There's a really good book that I must recommend to your listeners. It's called The Millionaire Next Door.
Yes.
And it's a beautiful book.
Yes.
And it's basically the authors interviewed or researched on lots and lots of millionaires and just what their ideology is, what their behaviors are, what cars they drive, what clothes they wear. But it is all down to the mindset as well, being frugal, not being wasteful, and so on. And one of the conclusions from this book was that only 1 in 5 children of millionaires become a millionaire.
Wow.
Because you need to have the mindset. That's the critical thing. So I said to my son, you do know that only 1 in 5 children become millionaires of children of millionaires. You know what he said to me? I'm going to be that one.
So good.
I don't know if that's a mindset.
Yes.
Or he was bullshitting.
Yeah. But it's a good.
But
It's a good
that's
comeback.
a good answer.
Yes.
That's a good answer. And so I think young people in this country, we talked about, the driver with the 55 cars, young guy. I think the opportunities are great. And the earlier you start, the better, really. And because of growth potential, for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, Dr. Dev, if people want to have a better sleep tonight, right, what should they do?
Well, look, sleep is critical to a healthy mind and a healthy body and a healthy soul. And so for those who don't sleep, the way I approach it is it a lack of sleep, quantity, or is it poor sleep, quality? Now, we live in a world where shift workers, we go to bed late, we wake up early, so you have to respect sleep. You've got to get yourself the 6, 7, 8 hours. So the first advice would be to have a routine, to make sure you go to bed on time, to get enough sleep and wake up on time as well. If you start work at 4 o'clock, then don't go to bed at 11 o'clock or midnight. You're not going to have the quantity, adequate sleep, and that's going to impact on how you feel in the day with regard to tiredness, fatigue, focus, concentration, risk of falling asleep driving. And then there's the quality of sleep. The commonest cause, in my opinion, of poor quality of sleep is stress, it's busy brain, it's to do with mental health and anxiety, and I've seen a lot of that. Over the COVID time. A lot of major mental health issues impacted on insomnia. Mental health, stress, anxiety doesn't go away when the sun goes down. It's still there at night time. So the important thing is to switch the brain off, to make sure you meditate, make sure you're not listening or watching screens, make sure you're not drinking too much caffeine or eating too late, drinking too much alcohol. Those are the simple things. But if mental health is a major issue, then go and see your GP. Go and seek advice. Don't just let it grumble and then burn out, and then find that you're unable to go to work because you're exhausted. Go and see your GP, go and see a sleep specialist, seek advice, get help, because you will feel better if you get the right advice for a good night's sleep.
What would you recommend to people that are already in burnout phase right now, not sleeping, in burnout phase? Where would you take them?
Yeah, look, that's obviously a complex question to answer. Obviously, burnout can be due to a lot of factors. Are you overwhelmed at work? Do you not have the feel you got the right support? Do you feel that people that you work for are not appreciating the great work you're doing? So it's important to understand where the burnout is originating from and try and work with your team, work with your managers, work with your bosses to see how we can or you can change and modify your work-life integration, balance, or whatever it is. What's driving that burnout? Clearly, if anxiety, depression, mental health is a driver of the burnout, then you really need to seek help. If it is anxiety and depression, then seeing a counsellor, seeing a psychologist to cope better with being overwhelmed, cope better with feeling that the anxiety and the stress is then interrupting with sleep, because there's no doubt that burnout is a 24-hour condition. It's not just in the day, it's at the night time. So you really have to work out where it's coming from and how you deal with it. And naturally, if where you're working...
You can work it out, right? If you burn out, if you two sit for a moment and have that, where is my burnout coming from, I think people would know.
People know, but not many people know what to do with it.
Yes.
People just hang in there. And generally, my experience is people who are burnt out, they're surrounded by people who are burnt out as well.
Right. Yeah.
And then they make your burnout worse, because every time you hang around with them during lunch breaks or whatever, they say, what a bad day they're having. What a crap day they're having. And then that makes you feel, yes, I'm having a shit day as well. So if it's a case where you're being bullied, you're being abused at work, and you feel you're not going anywhere, then my advice is seek help. Do you come out of that environment? Because if you're not careful, if you've burnt out, then it's a slippery slope to major mental health issues as well. Seek advice.
Okay. Dev, one more question, okay? If there was an outdoor or there was a message that comes from your soul, from your spirit, from your journey, if you had a standard and you put a message in there, what would you say to people that are driving through the highway in the direction of a better life? What would be the slogan on your board? Wow.
Now we're getting into the philosophy of this world and why we're here and existing, man. Look, there'll be a few messages.
Yes.
First of all, has to be sleep well. Sleep well. The second one has to be happy.
Yes.
Be happy. Happiness is very important in life. The happy people are not necessarily the ones who are rich and wealthy. You know, they can be poor, but they're happy because they don't always be unhappy about trying to achieve the Gucci watch or the Louis Vuitton bag and so on. They're just happy with what they have. That'll be my second message. And the third message is look after your family. Because one day you won't be around, but you have to be sure that they will then be the next generation that takes your legacy to the future. In the future, they will have to be your legacy. Look after your family.
Look after your family. Very good. Absolutely. Dr. Dev, if just us getting now towards the conclusion of our meeting and hanging out today, if people want to find you, they want to find your oil company, they want to find the distribution channels that you're building, what's the name of your business and where can people find you?
Yeah, look, I've got the sleep clinic, which is called Lullaby Sleep, Lullaby Sleep, just Google it. And then the dispensing and the medicinal cannabis help desk and therapy team, they're called Vivace Health, Vivace Health. You know how difficult it is to name a new business,
Yes.
a medical business.
Yes.
You know, if you want to look up good health, nah, gone. Best health, gone. Wellness health, gone. And so I thought, I was stuck. I thought, shall I just make up a term, but it's meaningless, you know? And I decided I tried the Turkish language first, but it didn't really make sense. And then, because I do speak a bit of Italian, I thought Vivace.
Yes.
Vivace. It might sound like Versace,
Yes.
but it's Vivace. So Vivace Health is
How do I spell it? How do I find it?
Vivace.
Vivace.
A lot of Australians pronounce it Vivace. It's not Vivace. Vivace. Vivace Health. And certainly look us up, Google us. That's where you'll find me, my team. If you're a doctor who wants to reach out to me and say, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not someone who teaches or recommends tax laws of this. I'm just an ordinary doctor who had nothing. When I arrived in this country, I spoke a lot of good English. Didn't have much money, but a little bit, and I made that grow. So I think a lot of doctors who will listen to this will relate to me and say, yeah, look, I could have been at medical school with this guy.
Yeah.
We could have been equal. But what journey do you want to be on? I'm more than happy to share my experience. I think having advice from guys like yourself and your team, who are absolutely fabulous, has certainly opened my mind, and the education and the knowledge is critical in order to get onto that journey for a happy life and a wealthy life.
Thank you so much, sir. Hey guys, you are on Beyond the Title. This episode was just amazing. If you have not watched the other episodes, please go there. Leave us your comments, your questions. The Beyond the Title is designed to help doctors to become better versions of themselves in investments and finance and entrepreneurship. Leave us a comment or any questions, anything that you want to know. We will bring guests to give you wisdom. Dev, thank you so much for being here with us today. Absolutely amazing, sir. So many notes, so many pearls, gold. I am so glad that you came to visit us today.
Look, Julia, I'm so glad to have the opportunity. I'm so glad to share my experiences. Yeah, look, there's always ups and downs, but to share my experiences with my fellow medical profession, because I care about them. We're family.
Beautiful.
We're family. We need to look after each other and make sure they're healthy and wealthy.
Fantastic, my friend. Fantastic. Okay.